Welcome back. A bunch of stuff we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
Did you see the Floyd thing, by the way, in the US?
Yeah,
It's finally torching to the ground.
I don't have any constructive commentary on that.
No, I
at
don't
all.
either. And by the way, I'm on the side of the protesters on that one. 7 minutes on somebody's neck. He was charged with murder. I just hope he gets convicted because sometimes they get away.
Yeah.
But at least he got charged with murder. The part I don't get is like, so that they're torching everything to the ground. Trump is talking about the army in Minneapolis and everything. Is like, same people that took the whole lockdown with any issue whatsoever.
Yeah.
I will never understand people.
Yeah.
Like,
they want to you want to trust your government to lock everybody in their home and give them the right to enforce
it's the
that
same
arbitrarily.
Yeah.
And yet you're like,
so you snitch people to cops.
yeah.
Right, because they are having a party at their house and get money from it in California. Did you see that shit? You get money for it. They have a phone line.
It's a hotline.
It's a hotline, to get money for snitching on people. So then it's all about government is telling us and, and the cops and all that stuff. So they're all good guys.
Yeah.
And
Trust your government. They tell us about science. And
Right.
then fucking smash everything.
right,
Like,
and
okay,
then you smash everything because a cop, a fucking lunatic, crazy, murders someone. But I'm like, but you do realize it's the same structure, right? So now so I think the anger of the lockdown is now spilling into let's destroy everything.
My short commentary on it is this: I think you see, the population needs to be divided into subsects.
They're playing you,
and that's exactly what it is.
They're playing you.
So they split you. Lockdown.
Yep.
I want to be locked down. Fuck the lockdown. Then they split you into racial lines. But then they
black
split,
and white.
But then they split again because now there's violence at the riots. So they cordon you off even more. There's some that understand it, some that think it's a setup. So what they do is they just keep fragmenting everybody.
They're playing you.
Until
And the media is playing on it
when
again.
if every single person just stood up and walked into their fucking local government, state government, everything, walk right through the fucking door, they will run out of handcuffs very quickly. And then the place is yours. And then have some reasonable demands. What do you want? In my opinion,
exactly.
This whole thing goes down to the war on drugs and exploitation of the poor. That's systematic and all things. So talk about that.
No, but yesterday they had a protest of 1,000 people here in Amsterdam for Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. But those are the same people that would not go. And I bet you some of those 1,000 were the same people snitching on people for having parties.
Yeah, for sure.
And now, so the lockdown was social responsibility. Remember hashtag stay the fuck home, otherwise you're killing everyone. Same people now are outside in a group of 1,000, shoulder to shoulder, screaming, spitting as they scream, which tells you everything. Same people who would have basically wished jail on people doing a nightclub party. But that's okay. This is not like the hypocrisy of the whole thing.
The hypocrisy of it runs deep, and I think the problem is too is that divisiveness is there only because like
they're playing you.
Yeah, like this is the media now on like, the greatest numbers in a decade, by the way.
Yes, they're so happy.
And
they
so,
made a fortune on the lockdown. Now they're gonna make more money on, and they're gonna fan the flames too. They fan the flames of the lockdown. Now they're gonna fan the flames of that shit.
Yeah,
it's one person who died.
Yeah. So if I don't know if I'm gonna riot, if I'm gonna protest anything, I'm gonna be protesting the media and the power structure, not people, business. So take it at that.
By the way, can we stop pounding small businesses? So they have the lockdown for 3 months. They reopen, and now they're getting torched to the ground by protesters. Those small businesses had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Why are you not protesting against the cop? Then go to the precincts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an anarchist. Like. You want to go and torch precincts? Let's torch everything to the ground.
Yeah.
Like, let's see if the world will burn. Yeah. But media and cops, let's do that first then.
Yeah,
why are you attacking small businesses again? They didn't suffer enough for the last 3 months.
Yeah. And so you see, like, we talk about this as human beings, right? A lot of your power in your consciousness is in where you selectively place your attention, right? And the problem is a lot of us live through our goddamn phones, and the media and the internet's attention
controlling you.
It's putting your attention on this stuff, and it's taking that power away from you. We talk about giving power to the Matrix. Like, think about this. Like you are just selling out everything for the sake of some fucking dopamine hit.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are controlling you. Like, you need to understand this. If you want to torch something first, the media has to go. Yeah. Well, by the way, I do think the media is dying.
Yeah.
But those are the death rattles of a dangerous animal still, though.
But hypocrisy runs deep. It runs deep in the fitness space, and health, and medicine, and science, and
Right. So
everything.
there's something I was reading that I found very interesting. That being said, before we go, like I was reading. So Richard was telling me the story of someone he knows, a dude who's multiple time like cancer survivor. He's getting old. He's toward the end. I mean, like he's gonna go. He gets COVID-19 and he didn't go to the hospital. You know why? He was like, because I don't want to die alone. Mm-hmm. I don't want to die away from my wife, my kids, and everything. So he chose death at home over going to the hospital. And if there's one thing I want you know, the thing that shocked me the most out of all of it is that the number of people who died alone at the hospital. Yeah. Dads, moms, grandparents, you know, like old. They get, and not just from the COVID-19, by the way. Some others were like terminally ill patients from cancer. Yeah,
I have stories from my hometown. People in nursing homes who families couldn't come visit them,
and died alone,
and only maybe had 6 to 10 weeks left.
Right,
family can't visit them. That timeline gets cut to about 3 weeks pretty quick. Then,
yeah,
and it's real fucking sad. There's a lot of things that happen in those environments that are lonely and sad and all those things, but at the very end I think
the people not dying alone has been a cultural bedrock for 10,000 years since there's been human culture. Like this is one of the things we don't do as culture. All cultures, like you take care of your elders, but letting people terminally ill like die alone, the coldness of this is what shocked me the most out of the lockdown, where I'm like, you guys gonna let this happen? You close the churches, and I'm an atheist, but you close the churches and you let people die alone. That is what shocked me the most out of all this. And someone is gonna have to apologize to those families.
Yeah. Well, and I think the value of community and tribe, that's what I see when I see churches locked down. I don't do church, not in the
I don't do church.
Bit, but in my, of course, if it's a public safety issue, but I just see this thing where you can't gather, we can't be around each other. They turn us against each other. Yeah. Now, if you die, you get to fucking die alone. You've detached a lot of these very connecting human elements of our society. But it's not reducing down to some greater. It's not boiling it down to like the greater parts of our
the
nature.
idea, if I die and I can't see my daughter before I die, how dare you? Like the shit when I saw that made me want to cry was that the most. Yeah. Like literally, like I was like, this is inhuman. Yeah. So the hypocrisy of all that stuff, and now like you know being sent toward protest and white and blacks and then they're gonna like it's but I want someone like. Some of you who took the lockdown so well and start snitching on your neighbors and everything, are you going to apologize 6 months from now for the people that died alone in the hospitals? No, because you'll go like, well, it had nothing to do with me. I didn't do anything. Right, but you were complicit to it. Yeah. Like that's the type of hypocrisy that really kills me is the inhuman treatment of some of the people, and it's going to be put as usual under the rug by people that are morally virtuous and always puffing their chest, and that will never have the balls to say we fucked up on that. And that's the hypocrisy. Like you have the right to be an asshole as long as you admit that you were one when you realize you were wrong. Yeah, that's what kills me the most in what I see is people incapable of saying I was wrong. I say it all the time whenever I fuck up, but that's
by the nature of this whole situation is there are 10 million decisions that have to be made. They're all fucking hard.
Yes.
And by the way, this is in no way a defense of anyone who's in power making those decisions right now.
But it's true.
The fact is, you should be able to make a decision and say, I'm making this based on the best information that I can get. And I'm making this decision based on my interpretation of that information and how that aligns with what I think is right to do in this situation. And then if you're wrong,
then you say it.
Hey, man, what else?
But
yes,
you
in hindsight, would I do it differently? Totally. Jesus, are you fucking crazy, right? If you knew, you'd be like,
exactly, but you
no one will fucking say that. Not a person.
Exactly. Like this is, remember we talked about this even on Instagram when we made the joke, strong men is like CrossFit for men, and women took it the wrong way. And we said, that's not about women, it's about men and boys. Yeah. And no one could go like, oh, my bad. I misunderstood the point. Like people can't do this anymore, and we saw that developing a lot on the post that you sent me. That we will not say the name. Where there's a maybe it's a shift. I don't know if we're the one who created the shift, but there's a shift toward that that crazy, insane stuff about data. That's what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, shift wouldn't be the word. I think it's like a rising tide. Something is swelling up where I think the overall idea that we now have to point to pure, like, the fact is, you used to hear, and I mean this, 3 years ago, we used to hear in the fitness space, well, there aren't any peer-reviewed.
It's all about data.
The terms would come out from people who don't even know what they mean. Yeah. Well, there are no double-blind peer-reviewed studies that say this, and I'm like, so is that is that the standard?
Well, even because I had
like, what the fuck are you talking about?
By the way, this is my 5 months old kitten. As you can tell, she's of a certain size. Oh, she saw a bird. The bird is dead. There we go. So there you go. So that's my life now, all time. Yeah. So yeah, we had those conversations but it went past the peer-reviewed data. The key was empirical evidence. Yeah, do you have empirical evidence? Yeah. And I think fundamentally what we saw is people who do not understand science.
Yeah.
I think that's what it came down to. And that's just ego-driven in the fitness industry from coaches that got sold the whole empirical data because that's how the people who were selling them the stuff made money off of them, by stroking their ego and saying, now you're a scientist, you have empirical data. So let's talk a little bit about how science works, because then I want to go into systems after that. But first, people misunderstand what empirical data is. Like there's different types of data. You have empirical data, you have logical data, and you have anecdotal data. And people don't seem to understand that science is based on all three. So to go back at what science is, it's a Bayesian inference process, which means you get an hypothesis that you're going to use to make a prediction, and then you're going to use data to see if that prediction is good or not.
Yeah.
Right. That was the process. But you have to understand that this is a process using all three types of data.
Sorry.
There you go.
I have to.
Then the cat is going.
Well, when the phone sits next to the cord, every once in a while, what happens is it'll get too close. It goes on the thing.
Also between the her purring.
Well, and I just remembered that I need to not fuck this sound up. And so, but it needs all three types of that data.
Right, and so
not just the one.
Not just the one. So you have to get an hypothesis. How do you get an hypothesis? Well, that's when it comes down to creativity, intuition of the scientist. Like, for example, Einstein changed the world, Isaac Newton, Leonard Susskind, those are people, they say themselves, all science starts with an assumption, but not an assumption, even though people don't understand this is, yes, most science starts with an assumption. It starts from a human going like, I think I have an idea.
Yeah.
That's how all science starts. Even the what they call hard science, mathematics and physics start with an hypothesis, which is an assumption. So how do you get to an hypothesis? Well, first you get anecdotal data going like that really, like, I think this is a pattern.
Yeah.
But it starts with a human being.
One human being, one experience, one idea.
Stuff.
They extrapolate from there.
Exactly.
A theory.
And then it gets logical, what they call logical data, which means reasoning, going like, well, I saw this, I do this. What would be the idea behind that? And that's how you formulate the hypothesis. Yeah. So you get anecdotal data. From there, you formulate the hypothesis. And then once you have the hypothesis, you make a prediction. That's more logical data. Like, well, if this is that, then this should happen. And then you use empirical data to see if you were right in your prediction or not. Yeah. Did the empirical data prove you right, or did it prove you wrong? It can never fully prove you right, but it can prove you wrong.
Yeah.
If you understand.
Yeah, it can support a theory, but it really never makes it the truth.
Never.
Things never become the truth.
It's never 100% true, ever. Nothing is ever 100% true.
And I think that's one of the things that they say is about it with, if you have a hypothesis and I have a differing hypothesis, right? Yeah. And your theory goes and is fairly well supported. My theory might be a little bit different explanation of the same thing. If my theory assumes less than yours, or proves more, then that supersedes it.
Exactly right.
But that's how the process is. It's about refining these theories into getting them closer to the truth.
And so for the last few years in the fitness industry, what we have is people saying the only thing that matters is empirical data.
And where that goes to is we talked about data-driven science and how
so let's go over that again. Let's explain why this is wrong.
Yeah. So data-driven science sounds really good. sounds like the science you want. Data-driven, makes
No,
sense.
if you don't understand science, it sounds like what you want.
But what it really is harvesting numbers, and you can make anything sound like anything.
Because you know what it does, data-driven science, which they don't understand, empirical evidence, all it does is allow you to find a pattern. So guess what? It goes back to creating an hypothesis, just like anecdotal data did.
Yeah.
So if you think empirical data is everything, what you don't understand in a way is that it's the same thing as anecdotal data in that sense.
Yeah.
Because you did not prove or disprove anything through that data. All you did is formulate an hypothesis.
Well, and that's it. So,
and now the work starts.
And just like before, where say I had a hypothesis then that assumed less, or basically established more, covered more, that will hold up with empirical data behind it. But my job then, like if I just got the data, I can't just sit there and hold data against your thing and say, you have to ask them the question, create a new hypothesis, and then go test, because that's the process.
Right. So that's the issue. Is everybody was, for whatever reason, rock hard on empirical data.
Yeah.
I see that. I love to study the history of science because you get so much out of it, right? And if you look past the Victorian era, like England, 19th century science, what's his name? Evolution, Darwin, all that stuff. You have the whole arguments of naturalists. There was a very interesting time in science, but some of them went too hard the other way, and when started with that idea that anything that cannot be measured cannot exist.
Yeah.
That's something you saw in 1920 in the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, Niels Bohr versus Einstein, but that really dates to the Victorian era of English science, where they pushed way too far into that aspect of, if you cannot test it, it does not exist. Yeah. And you saw the fallacy of that argument in, for example, lactate. 1920, lactate, I tested it, this is what I saw, and where did he fuck up on the conclusion? Because that's where I want to go, is the importance of logical reasoning. Well, logical data, basically.
I think you can test that pretty accurately anyways by your own human experience involving your own fucking consciousness. And
right.
All right, so I'm nobody's measuring this shit. Nobody's understanding whatever this is that makes my observation of the world. There,
but we're not understanding it through data.
No,
exactly,
not at all.
And that's actually Carl Friston was talking about it, saying if you do that, then you're a neo-phrenologist.
Yeah.
The stuff with the bumps on the head where you touch. So that's what the fitness is that with empirical data. They're all neo-phrenologists. Those people, I said, there's only data. Yeah. No, there is not.
Well, and I still I always go back to this too, with the people waiting on empirical data is your version of the last people to adopt something. You know what I mean? It has to be completely quote unquote proven and blah blah blah. And you don't understand. And it's not. But it's not. You don't understand that these are moving
So
targets.
that's what I want to explain today. Is that is not how science. That is not how the world works. And I have something in mind to explain.
And the process is about asking questions.
Right, because it is about the logical aspect. So what do we see? Oh, that bird is dead. What do we see in science today? You see studies very well made, because if you look at what school is teaching PhDs and everything, they're teaching them how to do a study. Like, how to limit variables, control variables, do all that stuff. So what you see is studies that are very well made, with a conclusion that is borderline moronic. We had a few that we did on podcast. Remember, like the melanocortin axis, all that stuff, where the study was awesome. I gained so much from it. And then I'm reading the conclusion, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You can't say this out of that. And that's been most of the studies that I read. I read the study, and I'm like, this is awesome. And then I get to the conclusion, and I'm like, who wrote this? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, how did you get this out of that? And this, to me, is the pattern that I've seen in science, where we are teaching people how to gather empirical data, but the logical data, which means the conclusion, the logical reasoning and everything, that seems to be gone. It's like the Greeks would be ashamed. Like Socrates would dismantle science today. Like so there's an issue there. So which raises a good question. You have two possibilities, because the middle never exists. Do you want excellent data, poor processing, or do you want poor data, impoverished data, excellent processing?
I would probably go with excellent processing.
Right. So remember, like from your system, like from the book you were saying, you were saying like those are not the same. So explain that, because then I can go to my point.
There's there's a couple of ways that you can do things with any large system. This is based on industry and business, but essentially when you're playing game, if you will, against
Everything's
two
a game.
people or a market or any of those things, there are things that have to be assumed. And one is that, is your data complete or is it incomplete? Do I understand I know, or playing chess, right? Do I know what move you're going to make next? Because there can be situations in which I can know exactly what your two options are. Right. Therefore, this move begets this, and that's having very complete data. But if I go one way, and there's some very wild card options out there that can happen, and that's kind of having incomplete data, very incomplete data. But I can be certain that I don't have complete data, but
that's only certainty you have. Yeah.
But then you're required to make your next move based on any number of these possibilities.
Percentage.
And that, just like we talked about with AlphaZero, is Stockfish is very, very processor heavy. Meaning what you have to do then, the only way when you're dealing with incomplete data is you got to process wide swaths of data very accurately before you can get to an understanding of what the possibilities are.
So let's explain that. Let's explain the two that I talked about, Stockfish versus AlphaZero, because the listeners might be more, might remember that better. Oh, there you go. So you get Stockfish, which was excellent data, all the endgame tables, all the openers from Grandmaster, and I think, if I remember correctly, 100,000 games from Grandmaster, so that's excellent data, but poor processing power, in the sense of Stockfish does not think, it just repeats, it calculates.
It's a
brute strength.
Brute strength. It is essentially has to test, if you will. Test would be to do the math on every possible potential scenario. It has to go out and map the entire possible expanding future of that game.
Exactly. And so
with every move.
And so the way to beat Stockfish is the horizon effect, which means you complicate things.
Yeah.
And then eventually you just run out of processing power. Yeah. That's always been the problem. And then enters.
Does the Stockfish just flip the fucking table over like I do when I play? At that point,
it's actually I'll explain something.
You motherfucker! Don't start chewing on electrical wires, dude.
Yeah, no, like she won't understand that one. Yeah, like she saw something moving, like that. It is a kitten. I know it's the size of a full-grown cat, but it is a kitten.
Dangling strings around it. Listen, man.
But see what she's like that? See when she starts to look at you like that? That's when I know she's gonna jump.
She's gonna hurt me.
Oh, she's gonna jump, and she has sharp claws right now.
So
but AlphaZero. Yeah, let me tell you a story because it's very funny. With so there was AlphaZero, right? AlphaZero retired, and now there's a computer called Lila.
Okay.
And Lila is
carrying the torch. It's
carrying a torch. It's the same idea. It's not nearly as strong as AlphaZero, but it's getting. Because it's getting into it's opening up lines that we've never seen or understood before. It's changing chess.
Yeah.
Like I said that on the podcast for like, I don't know, like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was December 2017, I think. So almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's changing chess. So it's very, very interesting. But if you look at AlphaZero, what is that? It was impoverished data, actually almost no data. Only the game is going to play against itself. But the processing is through the roof. That was the difference. So that's what they call the neural net computers.
Yeah.
And that's what you see with Lila, which means they just learn as they play against each other or stuff like that. So, and it's all about processing. So impoverished data, but all about processing. And if something has been proven is that the AlphaZero, the Lila are the one, they're better.
Yeah.
And so going about flipping the stuff, there's a famous game now between Lila and Stockfish. And the best way I can explain this is Lila is trolling Stockfish at the end of the game. He destroyed Stockfish. I remember I told you about that one.
I saw that one.
And it's sacrificing
like a cat playing with a dying fucking bird.
Oh, it's doing moves. There's no reason. And I know they can explain the algorithm. It's play percentages because he want. But to me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is trolling.
Yeah.
Like he sacrificed the queen for no reason. And then he queen another pawn 3 moves later, and then sacrificed that one too.
Well,
and then it was the most.
One of the things that I had read, and not understanding fully what underpins this, was that like in that situation where that's happening, is that it didn't need that to win.
Yeah.
But that there is something to be had for learning. Meaning it knows that no matter what, it's in this situation where winning is happening. Yeah. Therefore,
then it starts playing
let's just accumulate some new experience.
Right. But let's get better. That's what a cat does.
Yeah.
He plays with his foot because jiu-jitsu, you do that. When you spar with a white belt, you don't submit it. You see what he's going to do so you can learn. Yeah. That's an awfully human type, living type behavior. So like Lila Chorling, Stockfish, was one of the funniest shit when it comes to chess you've ever seen.
And I remember watching the feed thing because there was people who know way more about chess than I do, by the way, and who were like, "What is happening?"
But it makes no sense. No, but there's mate in 3, and it takes him like 17 moves.
It reminded me of watching like a really exciting moment in college football. You know, where the guy's like, "Whoa, Nelly!"
But you've never seen the game or baseball. I'm like, everybody's cheering. I was like, "What the fuck happened? I don't get it." So, that was so funny. But anyway, right. So the point was like Stockfish versus AlphaZero. So it comes to the point. So in that sense, you have impoverished data versus high computing power. That seems to matter. Right. So that means that it would be empirical data would be weaker than logical data in that sense. Yeah. That's in the sense. But again, I'm not saying you don't need empirical data. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying the correct way forward is to place the emphasis where it matters. Yeah. And the emphasis is not empirical data, because that can lead you astray. If you have poor processing power, empirical data will lead you astray. Yeah. Because you won't be able to see the proper pattern and everything, which is mostly what I see in science today. Studies that are done very, very well, but poor conclusions. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you go the wrong way. So when you try to build something, it's like, best example is with our podcast about the telomeres, when they bred those mice. Yeah. They bred those mice going, well, that's the best way to do it. Empirical data was, you look, we produce more mice with but because they had poor logical capacity, reasoning capacity, they didn't see that they were about to screw the entire field by just making sure they get as many mice as they can. Yeah. So that's the problem of empirical data. It falls under the same umbrella. Right. And so I started to looking a little bit deeper, and then I'm like, all right, so in that, I'm not a naturalist in the sense of, because it's a longer conversation where we can have about philosophy one day, but I'm not entirely naturalist, although I am on certain aspects, but I do think it's too narrow of a view because of the Victorian era things. I'll explain one day. I don't want to go into it today. But my idea was, if I am right about processing power versus empirical data, I should see that in the processing of the brain, because our brain is just, and I will refer you to Carl Friston on that, our brain is a physical representation of the way the world works, because all systems are. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, he was talking about, like neural connection between far piece that mimics actually the laws of physics on certain things. So he had an entire lecture on that was so brilliant. I'm not going to paraphrase what he says because he said it better. So go see, I posted it on the StrongFit community, go see Carl Friston. But so let's see how the brain works. So I started to look, and it's a paper I posted at when it comes to visual centers. Yeah. Right. So you have what the retina gets out of, and I'm going to explain the numbers, the retina gets when the retina sends it to the visual centers there, and what the visual centers do with that. And in order to frame the debate, poor data, excellent processing, excellent data, poor processing. So the retina gets 10 to the 10th bits per second, bits of information.
So a lot of information to the retina.
Right. Lots, it depends on how you look at it, because trust me, the universe is a lot more than 10 to the 10th.
But that's our starting point.
Right, that's our starting point, right. Yeah. Let's be honest, when it comes to the amount of information coming, 10 to the 10th is minuscule, because the retina, honestly, the range we see is not that large. Yeah. We have to understand that we think we see so well, but actually that's not true from a data perspective. And that's the points we're going to make, because that explains to you how the world works. Mm-hmm. Right. We actually don't see that much. We think we do, but that's not true. And that's my whole point. So 10 to the 10th bits per second is what the retina gets. Out of that, what is actually, what leaves the retina actually is 6 to the 10th to the 6th. So 6 times to the 10th of the 6 bits per second. So we already lost a lot.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit, right? 4 orders of magnitude. Not exactly. Yeah. But some orders of magnitude. Now, what gets the visual centers, because axons it's only so many in the...
There's 2 big steps of data loss.
Right. It's leaving the retina and then making it to the visual centers. Okay. And it's not efficient at all. what actually the visual centers, like, what the brain gets out of that is 10 to the 4th bits per second. So we went from 10 to the 10th to 10 to the 4th between what the retina gets, not what there is in the universe, what the retina gets to what the brain gets to work with.
So that's just
is 6 order of magnitudes lower, less than half.
So that's just lost process.
40%.
Lost in the process.
Right. Yeah. The brain gets to work with 40% of what the retina gets, which already is a minuscule fraction of what the world actually is. Right. So does that qualify excellent data to you?
No.
No, it does not. It's very, very, very impoverished data. And out of that, the processing, so for example, the visual centers used less than 10% of the synapses of the visual cortex is being used toward getting the data. So 90% of the synapses are about processing. Mm-hmm. Like this is what the brain is. It's a processing machine. And so we are AlphaZero, not Stockfish.
And that is about making assumptions, predictions, collecting data, modeling,
and modeling.
Translate.
There's so much energy based on modeling.
And that's the most important thing.
Right. And so if you look, for example, energy-wise, the brain uses 20% of the body of the energy of the body. It's 2% of the mass, 20% of the energy. So it's huge, right? So you would think likewise because the brain makes decision, controlling the heart, all that stuff. Actually, that's not true. Only 5% of the total energy of the body is toward that. 15% is only about creating the predictions, about creating the simulation of the world.
Yeah.
Like creating those predictions. 15% of all the energy of the body is processing, creating simulation, modeling the world around us.
Mm-hmm. And because there's incomplete data though, that is an estimation of the world, right?
But that's a Bayesian model.
Exactly. So to go back to that is we are designed in almost every step of the way to create predictions, hypotheses about
because that's what everything does.
Yeah.
That's how the world works. It's a Bayesian inference model. That's what everything is.
Yeah.
And so if we go back to visual, so what we don't understand is that the quality of vision that we get does not come from the data we get. It comes from the processing of the brain. Mm-hmm. Everything is assumption. We have the hole right here, right in front of us, that we cover up. Mm-hmm. But technically, the way the eyes meet, there's a hole right here that we know that.
You can see your nose 100% of the time. Your nose is in your line of sight, and your brain dismisses it almost always.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, when you're like,
take a look. It's there.
You would have to. Yeah.
I mean, maybe mine's a little more fucked up than most, but a couple car accidents.
But again, there's a hole right here that your brain covers. We get the image, and then the brain reverses it and everything. So most of what you think you see is not empirical data. Yeah. It's logical data. It's processing of information.
And there's a lot of decision-based things that are happening on the fly about information to dismiss. Visually alone, right? Visually is one thing. Also, things that you hear.
Yes,
touch,
after it's a Voltron effect, so everything.
All of those things, when the amount of data the body gets is very incomplete, generally speaking, and it also actively chooses, processes, and disregards a lot of it. It may sit somewhere, but it is not put at the forefront. So prioritizing all of that input is going on constantly. There are things that your skin is feeling at this moment right now, shirt touching here, waistband, that mean that you feel not at all at the moment.
So that means that the world is not empirical data, it's intrinsic. Reality is intrinsic, which means it's your inner real. You do not see the world, you see your inner reality.
Yeah.
It is not about empirical data, it's about logical data. In that aspect, right? The world is intrinsic, which means you do not perceive the world, you perceive your perception of the world. That's why they say perception creates reality, because that's how this works. All reality is perception, especially on the human side. It is about the processing of information. So, but you have to understand that it works like that even for an amoeba, even for non-life. If non-life does not have perception. So, for life, everything is based on perception, so prediction versus observation. Everything is a Bayesian inference model. That means that push that we put toward empirical data means that you profoundly do not understand what science is. And this is why I got upset a bunch of times, because I had a guy telling me that Isaac Newton was all science and anecdotal. And I was like, if you think Isaac Newton is anecdotal science, So therefore not science, because that's what it was, all science, therefore shit.
Yeah.
That means, first of all, how dare you insult one of probably the greatest genius we had, like what Isaac Newton did for science, will, with some mistakes, because there's always mistakes, will, for me, the two greatest geniuses was, I would put Einstein first, because people truly do not understand how much it changed everything. Then Isaac Newton second. Both. You shouldn't be a list, but you get the idea, right? The fact that someone could insult Isaac Newton means that they profoundly misunderstood what Isaac Newton did, first of all, and second of all, what science is.
Yeah.
That whole empirical data, I see it as a capitalist view of science, because that is used to sell stuff, that is used to sell school.
Yeah.
How do you get your master's and your PhD? I know, because I'm helping Harper with it. It's all about data, not conclusions. Mm-hmm. And even her, she's getting frustrated because she's like, I don't understand the conclusion. And I was like, yeah, because it's wrong.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't make sense. That's why you don't get it. So, but that's not what they're teaching her to do anyway. No one is teaching you to make the right conclusion. Why? Because that's philosophy. Yeah. Epistemology, the research of truth and everything. Yeah. This is logical based stuff. This is what philosophy is supposed to teach you. But they don't take those classes. Yeah. So all school is doing is teaching you how to gather empirical data, which without processing is useless.
Yeah.
So and then what do we get? So that's cool. Then what do we get in the fitness industry? Same shit. Like, let me explain to you how to get data on an airdyne.
The fact is, it's an entire carryover of that, as though we cannot speak as though they're separate.
Yes, that's true.
Same thing that's happened in the medical space.
That is very true.
That process now, it's the same, not the same, but it is doctors coming out of that system, and researchers and it just is shifted to this field, same as it would with almost anything else when it comes to fucking designing paint. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like everything is going to come down to that, and it's an extension of a system that is flawed. Yep. But I think we see it often though in the fitness space. Maybe it's just because we're in it, but I notice it much more because what we need as human beings, the reason science is important for us, is so that we can make a conclusion. Because I don't fucking care, generally,
about the data.
Data never changed my fucking life. Yeah. The right conclusion and the right step forward.
Exactly.
Will. And so you could build on all the wrong data in the fucking world if you point me in the right direction. And I take those steps, that's when you
data. Yes, exactly. You know? So Stockfish versus AlphaZero.
Yeah.
But so they all think Stockfish is a god. One of the main reasons for that too is the problem when we say medical science. And there's a problem, I think, fundamentally about that. This is the arrogance of people in the medical science that had a chip on their shoulder from the beginning of the world, for whatever reason. That comes with a job, it seems.
Yeah.
Where they say medical science, but that's not true. Mathematics is a science. Physics is a science. Medical is not a science. Just like engineering is not a science. There is no science of engineering. Engineering is applying different sciences.
Yeah, to real world applications.
Math, physics, exactly. That's what the medical world is. Dr. Peterson was saying that, and I was completely agreeing with him on that. It's like there is no medical science. Medical is engineering. Mm-hmm. It's applying the different things into this. But the problem is when you look at medical science, is then they all start to jerk off at the idea of their like math and physics. Yeah. They have a chip on their shoulder. They know they're not true scientists like mathematicians and physicists, and it seems to create a problem.
And I don't think in the human body that we have engineering problems. I think we have.
No, it's a great engineering machine.
Yeah, we have what we have. The issues that we're always trying to resolve or get to the bottom of are these like, what's the word? Like, it's not an engineering problem. It's a fucking like, it's like an application issue. It's
which is the thing with engineering. Yeah, like you build a bridge. I don't care if you tell me that the math are correct. The bridge crumble.
Yeah.
That's why engineering is not a science, because it's about application.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's the problem you see in the medical world, is that idea that, we are scientists. You apply science. That does not make the medical world, medical science a science.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just application of science. It's just like engineering.
I also think that there is a leaning on data. And not just leaning on data to prove whatever it is your own worldview is, but I think leaning on data exclusively as like being a conclusion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fundamentally wrong.
But I think it's fucking cowardice.
It's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong.
It's a way to not have to stand up and say, based on the things that I have learned and looked at, this
is memorization.
Is what it is. It's like, no. You've read me the numbers, and now what the fuck does it mean?
Basically, you're quoting somebody else.
Yeah.
So you cannot prove anything through empirical data. You prove it through logical data, through processing, through reasoning, because that's the way the world works.
Yeah.
And I think that's fundamentally the problem. And what you see today with medical science is that need to come up with numbers to act as if they are mathematicians and physicists. It's not the whole problem, but I do think it's part of the issue.
Look at what floats up in the social space. Now, it's not always the best indicator of what's going on in the world, but it's kind of a good indicator of what
stupid people can be.
Of what is in front of a lot of people. You will see a lot of science that's out there that doesn't float to the top, that has a bunch of spineless, uninteresting, weak conclusions. And I get it. If you know what, you can have data that's not that conclusive, that's fine. But there are things where you'll read, this says something, and they will not even take one step away from that data to say, this is what this could mean. Let's look further.
Let's make a conclusion.
They will not actually make a conclusion.
Yes, there is also that.
Because making a real conclusion means that conclusion maybe could be proven wrong. That hypothesis.
Yes, they have a vector for attack.
Yeah. And so, boom, you've given them something to gun for, and you need to be proven right to get more money, more research.
Yes, that is true that there is a problem of being spineless also in that world.
And then the other side that floats up then, when you see most of what comes up via just I'm saying the fitness space in that regard for science, when you start seeing studies that come up like that, all you see is clickbait then. Then the only conclusion somebody's willing to leap for is something that everyone's already going to love.
Yep.
Coffee.
Yes.
Great for you.
Right.
Coffee.
Never
wine,
get a study saying
one glass
it could
a
be
day,
fine for
maybe
you.
3.
Yeah.
Like, it's all these things that are...
And then they only go up.
Yeah.
Or, if you notice, it's like protein. It used to be that many grams. Now it's more every year.
Did you know that you can eat more carbs? And while there are certainly some studies that say that, those ones float to the top, and the 10 or 15 where someone's not willing to say, hey, actually, this kind of points to a lot of the problems with excessive carb consumption. Those do not float to the top. And they might sit in some published thing, but there's no interesting conclusion, and it doesn't make a difference to people in the world. So what in the fuck is your science for? That's my question.
Because it's not
Put it in a
science.
file cabinet and close it.
But it's not science. And then that's what I've been trying to say for years, is that the falling in love with empirical data allows you to just quote people.
Yeah.
To go, well, that person said that. It is either the act of a coward, like you say, or the act of a moron.
Yeah.
And I see it in a simple way. You're being sold that by, I believe, either people mistaken or less than ethical, that have been using the empirical data as a way to stroke your ego, to sell you stuff, like 100 pages on the airdyne and how to gather data on an airdyne and everything. And that's what we've been seeing in the fitness industry for a while. It seems to be, that post seems to be said there might be a shift toward that. But empirical data is not science. Like that, if you think that, you profoundly misunderstand what science is. At the foundation, science is what the world is, which is processing, which is logical data. So the data only helps you to get to a better conclusion, and that's all. And
there is only one way in which I think that empirical data can give you a fully comprehensive view, where it will ever be like truly complete or fully coherent, right? What's the word I'm looking for? But is if you had some sort of like literally like a total singularity on information.
It's a closed system. If you had a closed system, and you knew everything, every variable there was to be known about that system, then you could make a prediction.
And you can measure everything, and I mean everything.
Yes. And guess what? You cannot.
And who knows?
Quantum mechanics. No. Quantum mechanics tell you cannot.
You can get close. You're going to miss everything quantum, I guess, for quite some time.
No, it's impossible. But it's a theoretical idea that in a closed system, if you knew everything there is to know, then you could predict the future, because then you know how things would be and stuff like that. The problem is, guess what? Doesn't work like that.
Well, I think that zooms back to where the limitations of stockfish was anyways, is because that comes up as inherently misaligned with the way the universe is.
Right, because you don't have the processing power. So the idea is like, all you need is more processing power to store more information. And that is not the world works.
Yeah.
So, or we are saying that the brain is not nature's greatest invention. And I'll disagree fundamentally with this. But the thing is, and you see that...
I thought that I was.
Well,
Fuck.
yeah,
Man.
exactly.
Okay,
That's what my family told me.
I'm gonna have to rewrite my morning mirror speech.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but that if you look, then you would negate the idea of, for example, the whole predictive coding, even that an amoeba does. Then basically you negate Carl Friston, the prediction versus observation, like the whole active inference. You negate Schrödinger in What is Life? Like you know what I mean? Like all that stuff has to go away. Because if you look at the whole idea all the way back to Schrödinger with What is Life, is that to diminish entropy, I need to gain knowledge, I need to learn. So it's about processing. Never. So data is what, by the way, is entropy. The measure of disorder of a system and everything. So you could, I mean, you would have, if you come at me and saying empirical data is everything, that you profoundly misunderstand how the world works. You misunderstand science. And if you misunderstand the world, you misunderstand science.
It is interesting. Data.
That's
data
what naturalism says,
almost
actually.
solely as a measure of entropy. Actually, if you think about it,
that's what it is.
It's just where it sits on that spectrum, where things coalesced in the space. That's very interesting, actually. Yeah.
It's that.
As it really is almost the
But that's what the bits that I was talking about, that's a measure of entropy.
Yeah.
That's what this is. So, you know what I mean? Like fundamentally, people misunderstand science. And I was used to sell shit. And so now we're starting to see a shift, at least in some people in the fitness industry, who have been saying for years that the only thing that matters was the empirical data. I was on a podcast one time where the guy was like, are you measuring? And then are you saying that? And I did not defend myself correctly back then. I wish I could have that podcast back, because then I was so bent on apologizing for misunderstanding that I let the person attack me almost as trying to be nice, instead of sticking to my guns and saying, no, you misunderstand how this works. With something I should have done, but I didn't. So I'm still pissed about it. But now there seems to be a shift saying, well, empirical data is not everything. I'm like, really? Really? Because that's what you've been selling for fucking years and attacked me with. So I found that very strange. But in the fitness industry, in a way, I don't care, because all I want to see is the fitness industry to move away from that everything is empirical data.
Well, there's a thing that we've seen a lot in coaching, and I think we've mentioned this before, but that oftentimes in coaching, we'd like to think that it's your job to be right. And it's our job to do everything that we can to be right.
Right. Yeah, obviously. Yeah,
totally.
You're trying to. Yeah.
But it is actually more important that you're having people do things that you believe in, that you truly believe in. And a lot of this data now, because it's been so data driven, is any conclusion can be made about almost anything. And so you look through this stuff, there is very little out there on most of these subjects that's convincing in any way. So you're trying to actually get someone to adopt a thing or make a change or do anything, right? Convincing them via that data is not going to do very good.
No, it's
because they can go point out that
it's
so
talking
right now,
to the person.
It's no different than dealing with news right now. The fucking pool is too polluted.
Yes.
So like it's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
You know what you would rather have is a coach, a person, whatever, who says, I believe that this is the best thing for you
because
to do.
This
because
is
I
exactly.
do believe it, and because this is our relationship. And when we go forward, if we will make changes as things go, but it's based on the things that I know, that I do understand, some data. It's a combination of all of those things.
This is the problem when you just quote others, where memorization stockfish system. When you say empirical data, what I hear is I'm quoting someone else.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm hearing. What your experience is as a coach what matters the most. This is why we push people to do stuff, to try, because the only thing, not the only thing, but what matters most is your experience as a coach. First, training on yourself, and then training people, because you will make mistakes, unfortunately, and you need those mistakes, because your experience as a coach and as a person, as an athlete, as a person going through life and, eating shit and getting slapped and all that stuff is what will make you a better person, coach, athlete, or whatever. It comes down to experience. What matters is processing, not empirical data. Empirical data is important, but not nearly as much as logical data.
In a coaching relationship, if I have a coach, I would rather, like we've heard it all the time, I would rather have them be sure than be right. Because sure at least means there's some sort of measure of belief in there with them, and rightness is, you see it with the way data works. It's a fucking moving target all the time. So let's just go with what we think.
Systems break down from indecision way more than they break down from bad decisions.
For sure.
Bad decisions will hurt you a lot less than indecision.
Yeah.
So You have to be able to take action. And there's a deeper level on psychology with the problem of indecision versus bad decisions. Is somatic errors, 3 ways to fix it: change the prediction, change how you feel, change the world. Right. When you go toward indecision, what you're feeding is changing how you feel instead of changing the world. This is what you see where people that memorize or quote others is they're looking toward another person to change how they feel. To act for them, therefore changing how they feel instead of them changing the world. That whole empirical data is a way for you to move away from action into indecision, into just changing how you feel. That is so dangerous. That is a very dangerous road to go through.
Also, because if you've ever had business, family, all those
actions,
things, there was a burden that people that don't live that maybe don't understand. That is that somewhere in there, hopefully, you're taking on the responsibility that decisions be made and that hopefully you do make the right ones. And that if that goes on often enough, you do know that sometimes you're making those on incomplete information.
Yes,
going on
but
judgment.
you always do.
You always have
you
to.
always do on incomplete information.
You cannot do nothing.
And going back even to the networks, that means that you are stuck in one network. If you can't change the prediction, that means your ego is taking over and you're incapable of changing your mind unless the person that you're taking your stuff changes their mind. And since their business is based on that, they won't. You're not into the executive network because you can't take action. So you're starting to get nailed into usually the default mode network, which we've seen is the seat of addiction. And like you are like the social justice warrior, I do believe people are like this or that, like, you know, because they're young. No, I do believe it's a mental disorder. That if you look, they are incapable of changing their mind, no matter what you say. They're incapable of taking action. They scream at people, but what do they talk about all the time? Micro offenses. This is how I feel. What they're doing is changing how they feel about things. Like, you know, those echo chambers. What is an echo chamber? It's no action. It's all about how you feel.
And there is no, we talk about the salience network and recognizing patterns. The issue is functioning well at pattern recognition means actually seeing the patterns. It does not mean seeing 15 patterns out there and pointing at one.
Right.
And ignoring
because
the other.
Remember, the salience network is to make you do stuff.
And that's, I've gone way deep down this road for the last few months, is in the process of just systems in everything. Like literally the concept of complex systems and its application everywhere. And at its nature, that is what everything is. That's, you know what I mean? If you're going to look at this, you need to look at it as, you're going to recognize patterns. It can't be this narrow thing that only confirms your shit. You will then understand that every single thing is intertwined, that sexism, racism, all of these things, while they have a root somewhere, racism is not about race. It's about everything from poverty, crime, exploitation of the poor, money and government, tribalism. There's all this stuff.
It's like saying sex is power. That's it. Like, you've not seen culture. You've not seen like the beauty of like it, you know what I mean? Like, but if you look, so we have 3 main networks, you know, the task negative, the default network, and the task positive network, which is salience and executive networks and a bunch of others. But so if you're stuck only in one, that's a mental disorder. I don't care which one you're stuck in, but that's a mental disorder, no matter what, right? Because you need all 3. That's the point. All 3 are necessary to move forward. And so getting stuck in empirical data, to me, seems to be, and you know, like being so focused on this, is the same type of mental disorder we're seeing in the social justice warrior. Is those echo chambers where everybody's like, where it's just memorization, and in a weird way, it becomes almost like a tribal thing, where they have their own tribe of people that just do it, and everybody else is wrong, and it's the same. I see that as the same mental disorder in a way.
Well, I think a question I used to like to hear would be like, over the course of someone's life, like, what are like 5 things? I encourage everyone to write that down. What are the 5 things that you have really changed your mind on? You know what I mean? Like truthfully, of your view, and have you? And that can be over life philosophy. It could just be training and nutrition, right? But you can boil that down to everything. What did you believe to be the case before that then you've changed? And if that list is not very fucking long, then you got to rethink the way you look at things. That tells you something.
Speaking about that, trying to prove myself wrong, I tried something like 2 weeks ago. For 5 days, I had carbs during the day. So I always experiment with stuff, and I was like, all right, let's see, because I had like the oatmeal in the morning, didn't get too much of a reaction. I was like, all right, let's see what happens. So like 4 meals a day, Still no protein and everything, but I had carbs and fats. So I had either overnight oats or I had rice.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for 4 or 5 days. By day 3, I was like, I don't feel good. Like my cognition was on the way down. I didn't want to read. I couldn't read nearly as, I wasn't like like those, not creativity, but like, that intuition.
Yeah.
My intuition seemed to go away when it came to reading neuroscience and stuff like that. That pattern recognition seemed to go away.
That moment where you see something and you're able to jump from reading something to
something
your next step.
That seemed to be different, or at least not as energetic or whatever. So I was like, that's weird.
It's the 5G.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Still haven't looked into it. Lots of people have asked. I just don't have the time.
Yeah. And then I got to day 5 and I stopped. My body was so achy.
Yeah.
Like my bones, my joints, everything fucking hurt. Like this flared up right away, but in a weird way. Like I was almost feeling it like in my spine. I was like, what the fuck? I got like inflamed. Like my body was inflamed. I lost a kilo, which looked to me muscle because I was looking flat.
Yeah.
And just my body ached and I could not recover from the training session. I had like one hard training session, took me 4 days to recover. The other session got pummeled and everything. I was like, this is so weird. Maybe also because I reduced the fat, I might have reduced the calories as well. So that's...
Which is always going to happen, right? There's
If you switch the fat for volume-wise because you only eat so much volume, if you switch fat for carbs, you're going to necessarily have less calories. So maybe that's why. But the inflammation was real. So cognition went first and inflammation second. And some people go, oh, it's just a matter of calories. I don't think it's just that. That might have been, because I didn't count the calories, so that might have been part of it, but that is certainly not the only thing.
Well, let's pretend it was. Did it feel like something you wanted to keep doing?
Fuck no.
So
5 days, I'm out. I got so inflamed everywhere, and my training took a beating, and I could not recover, and that thing flares. Pain is cognition. There is no such thing as pain. Pain is all cognition. But the second you feel pain somewhere, that means your entire system is now taking a step toward not letting you do that. Mm-hmm. So you start to have pain when you press. That means your entire system is telling you not to press. It's doing everything it can to limit your pressing ability. So there is no performance in pain ever.
Yeah. It's like we've had, my hand's been healing up okay.
Yeah. But the second you feel it, right on the sled.
So when I've done all sorts of things. I've been able to mitigate. I had some bruising and stuff in here still where it kind of hurts to push.
Eating shit
and
on the bicycle.
Bend, wicked bike wreck. No cameras outside, by the way. I looked real hard.
Oh.
No cameras outside. I was going to go in.
See that one.
I stopped. I spotted it all. Do the trams have cameras? Because it was right in front of one.
That's a good question.
Send them an email.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway. But anyway, it was really interesting we do sled pushes and stuff, and I could make do if I grabbed the right way. It didn't cause much pain. I could do a pad on it so the bruising didn't hurt. It was okay, but it was a really interesting lesson in proprioception when we started going to the really heavy sled pushes.
So you did first set. Couldn't push it that well.
Couldn't push it. I mean, to the point where it was like it was glued down. You were on the sled amongst everything, and I'm going.
And I had to help a little bit.
I'd get halfway and die, and a couple steps and die. It's like, what
and the I had
fuck?
To help a
and
bit,
if I'm being honest, there was only marginal pain in this thing.
But
just enough, but compared to what it was 2 weeks prior.
Yeah, it was great.
Almost nothing.
Second set, you wrap your hand like
Second
crazy.
set, I just wrapped the hand.
Gangster wrap?
Yeah, just enough to where I had some pad on the hand and that it wasn't going to kick it back enough to where it got into the pain region. And this sled that moved almost not at all, to where I was, not only did I try to get Megan to sit on the sled instead of Julien, I was considering going with no people because I just couldn't, you know what I mean? And still with you, it went through just fine, and it was a really interesting eye-opener from a body protecting itself standpoint.
Right, and people understand because that's a vulture
because
effect.
I'm pushing with my fucking legs. And this is the thing, is I'm going and there is nothing
but the body
connecting my hand to pain, like that I'm thinking.
Right. But that's a very important concept because most people, when they refer to performance, have that idea that the small injuries, the nicks, that's what happens. It doesn't affect performance.
Yeah, you can push through. The pain isn't making you choose to do anything.
Right. And you are so wrong on this because like everything that there is in the medical science, and that's a joke, therefore, I'm just being funny, shows you like anything in neuroscience shows you that actually Voltron effect, when your body doesn't work at its best, you are very, very much limited in your performance. Mm-hmm. That sounds stupid when I say it like that, because that sounds so obvious, right? And yet, people deny that fact.
Yeah.
And that's very important because back to the Voltron effect stuff, when I say like immune response and emotions, it's all the same. When you start to have stuff like that, it limits your performance overall. And again, it sounds so obvious when I say it, but yet most people out there associate performance with pushing through pain, with like pushing through being tired, not nailing the importance of the Voltron effect. And that's, again, empirical data is also to blame in that sense because they look at their program and they go, I have to do it no matter what. There is no matter what. This is not how the human body works.
Yeah.
Autoregulation is still the only way forward because it's about processing, not data.
Yeah. So it's been a really interesting kind of experience for me, confirming. We've done a lot of work with proprioception in the past, but it's always been on, kind of good versus good. So for me, it's always kind of about patterning and figuring. But introduce pain to the equation, and now you fucking know.
Yeah.
Like now you really know.
And we'll go over that. It's like the need when you get hurt on a movement to actually do that movement, but at the correct intensity. And why do you need to do that movement? Because if you don't, the cognition of pain means that your body is taking you away from that. So you can do the assistance work, and you have to when you have an injury, and do all that fucking thing and all that. But at some point, you're going to have to do the movement that causes pain into just enough pain as a exposure therapy.
Yes.
So that you can learn to, because remember, like there is no such thing as pain. Pain is cognition. So all you feel in that movement is intensity. The reason you're feeling pain is because your body is stopping you from doing it.
Yeah.
So that means that we have to get to the moment where you feel the movement, it's slightly painful, but not too much, so that as exposure therapy, we can make the pain go away and you can only make the pain go away through the movement that causes pain.
Yeah.
Because of exposure therapy and everything. So I'll explain that a bit thoroughly in the podcast soon.
Yeah, and there's something I've got some stuff we found on that too that stem from like psychotherapy with what's the term, like memory reconsolidation, and how that works.
Right.
With same thing with exposure
Same
therapy,
idea.
same thing with
Same
training.
idea.
So that'll be
Everything is exposure therapy. So when it comes to movements that are painful, you will need to do those movements. But if you go past that 4%, I don't know if it's exactly 4%, but if you go past that 4%, you will. It's like a vaccine. Then the vaccine is too strong, you get sick. So you can't. There's that fine line, but you will need to go slightly into pain to recreate the proper movement pattern, because pain does not come from the joint. Pain does not come from the muscle. It only comes from the brain.
Yeah.
It's a brain thing. It has nothing to do. There's muscle and bone only create intensity. Pain comes from the brain. It's all cognition. That's nociception, right? The concept and everything, but that's a very important concept, because if you miss that, you will not understand how to come back from injuries. The necessity to do what hurts you is there. But you can't be stupid about it either.
Yeah, I learned a lot in the process too, as far as how I would coach people coming back from injury too. It's interesting to see. I hadn't had anything like that wasn't major. Anything that I'd had, it was kind of a thing. I had a partially torn oblique, I had torn calf, a few hit shit here and there, but those are things where it's like, oh, this is a big problem. This thing, after it was okay, after a couple weeks.
But it shows you,
it's just
exactly.
like, but man, that little shit matters.
And if you come back too fast, you're going to re-injure it. So how do we go? But you cannot not do it either.
Yeah, it also reshapes a lot for me. I've always known this, but seeing it like this is just short come and go. But you see people with chronic pain, and then you really like, you get to a place like, man, that has to just be all consuming.
Right. But then what do? They stop completely.
Yeah.
Which does not make the pain go away. On the contrary, then he basically signals to your brain that he won, that you should never do that movement again.
And you become more and more sensitive to pain.
Because you always live with pain. You can never take pain away. It's a cognition thing. So, but it doesn't matter where the pain is on the intensity level. If you say this intensity equals pain, if you lower the intensity, the pain stays. Yeah. So it's a ball on water in a tube.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter whether you raise or lower the water. The ball is still going to be on top of the water.
Yeah.
And so water is intensity, pain sits on top.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the water is. The ball is sitting on top. So, and you live within that ball. So it makes no difference where the water is. You're going to be in pain anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, should we go into the new online program?
Yeah. Let's do that.
To wrap it up?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing, with everything going on with the travel, coronavirus stuff, we've kind of had a bit of a delay in getting people in through seminars and stuff. So to give people opportunity, to take the step further than the StrongFit seminar.
Right, and we've talked about that for the last year or two anyway, where there was a problem with the Coaches Week is that it's not, and then I talked to a lot of people who told me it's not even the money they paid for the Coaches Week, it's the fact that they have to leave their gym for a week. The traveling, the Airbnb, the food, it just ends up being too costly and too time consuming.
Depending on where you're at as a coach, as a gym owner, I was fortunate when I did my Coaches Week was that I had a business partner who was a good coach, willing to take over and willing to take on that project. But if you don't, how am I supposed to take essentially to do the seminar and Coaches Week, a week off, spend a couple
always
grand,
been the problem.
And it's in a different town. It's been a week in a hotel or a week at Airbnbs. All of that adds up to something that while has inherently proved or has obviously proved over the course of the years to the people who've done it, very valuable to them.
But it's a bitch.
It's hard to do.
I get it. I get it. So
and it narrows our ability to help people then too if it's too difficult.
And that's true. And we can get people on the mentoring program where they want to go.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. And so at first I was like, we can do a week online, but we're starting to find a different way to do it. So my idea right now, and then we'll see if it works, is to have a 6 weeks program where you get calls, like 8 calls with Richard and me over 6 weeks.
Directly,
and one-on-one, by the way.
One-on-one.
Not in a group, one-on-one. So it's a 6 weeks one-on-one training program with Richard and me, 8 calls for 6 weeks, and then you get the online seminar. So to apply for that, for the online Coaches Week, you're going to have to do the seminar on site somewhere.
And if you have done it in the past,
you qualify, but you have to have done the seminar on site. Then we'll give you the online seminar and we'll give you the online nutrition and nervous system workshop. You're gonna watch that, and then you're gonna have a call with me, and then you'll have 2 calls that are Q&As, 2 calls that are very specific topics with Richard and with me. So two calls Q&A with Richard, 2 call Q&As with me, 2 calls specific topics with me, 2 calls specific topics with Richard.
So 8 calls, 6 weeks, directly focused.
And workouts and homework.
Accountability, homework.
So for 6 weeks, understand, you're going to work.
Real fucking hard.
Real fucking hard. Like, I'll explain this from the beginning. Like the whole, think you can, it's the same thing as empirical data we just talked about. The idea that you can just memorize what we say and move forward, you're wrong. This is about processing. Therefore, this is about experimentation. This is about doing the stuff. And there's no way around that one.
And we talked at length yesterday about how do we make sure there are some pillar experiences that people get out of Coaches Week, if you will, from learning, from specific training concepts to things that you do have to feel that you can't just watch and figure out. And that's why we kind of put the line where it is, where you do have to attend the seminar in person somewhere.
Because you have to experiment the stuff. The key is experimentation is everything.
But when you get into Coaches Week, I can tell you this is I have attended now 3, maybe 4 Coaches Weeks. 3, I think. 4. And every one of them is, for me, even having been multiple times, is still they're immensely transformative experiences in which you learn a lot, not just of information, but from the things that you do and the things that you feel and about application.
It's always about application.
So in this case, I think the opportunity for one-on-one with you and Richard going directly at, these are the pillar subjects we're going to work on, where your gaps, do this, work this, and get back. There's going to be built-in accountability. It is directly a working relationship with you and Richard. This isn't a thing where we're putting a bunch of shiny systems and we're just handing you some shit. This is a relationship with you and you two that is going to be fucking really demanding.
And that's actually the very good point, because we had that on someone on the community was asking for some of the tools that we use, for assessment, saying, oh yeah, that'd be great to have that in my business. And that's a fundamental issue with StrongFit, and it will always be there. I make very, very complex ideas sound simple. Right. Why? Because I have a very, very high conceptual intelligence that allow me to understand some concepts that are very advanced. And I work very, very hard at making them sound simple, if that makes sense. But that requires a deep, deep understanding, a very subtle understanding of the principles to do that.
And not just the principles, but of the pattern recognition in the people you're
Right.
seeing. And an example is the other day we were doing some sled work, and I remember Megan's just like smashed. It's not moving. Not moving at all. Julien says, at the exact moment, he just says, use your chest.
Yeah.
And she goes, whoa. And she gets done, she's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, how did that work?
Here's the thing. It's like, I told you that 15 times.
Yeah, doesn't matter. You had to say that
but
at the right time.
But it's the right time. Yeah. It's not setting up. It's like, I don't know. You need to see exactly.
Because if I said that beforehand, it doesn't work. That's not how this works.
And so, but we talk about every concept like this.
Exactly.
You can walk up and say, use your chest to everyone behind a fucking sled, and it ain't gonna work unless you place it right.
Because it's timing and it's knowing when the person is failing and when the chest starts to let go, and so there's that. But that's the work no one sees. Yeah. So someone from the outside would just see me saying chest up, which is not what I said. I said use your chest, which is not the same. But people are going to go, oh, he said chest up. No, I say use your chest. It's not the same. Yeah. It's not the same. But I say use your chest. But if you go, so next time someone is struggling on the sled and people will go use your chest. Yeah. Well, no, because for that particular thing, that's not what she needs to do.
Yeah. Cues are a part of coaching. Cues aren't coaching.
Yeah, exactly. But plus you have to understand that the cues work only in that situation. Yeah. Because in the situation with your client, that might not be the same parking lot, that might not be the same sled, that might not be the reason why she's failing. Yeah. In her case, she was not transferring the power of her legs into the sled. Yeah. So I told her to use exactly. So, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So, but the issue with StrongFit, it's always been is that people hear me say, take very complex ideas, make them down simple. So they go, oh, I got it. Yeah. And so they use those ideas as a starting point. Mm-hmm. And you're like, you're fucked if you do that. Yeah.
Because what can happen is that you can be asked one question or be in a slightly different context and not understand it. So
and you don't
want with this Coaches Week is to get you that application. You experience it. You heard it from Julien. If you didn't understand it, you get it redirected in a way that matters to you. Right. And so much of what Coaches Week is and was always in person is conversation. And we would do in Coaches Week very, very often. It wouldn't be Richard standing up there parroting information. Mm-hmm. It is a dialogue. It is asking questions. It is figuring out each other's problems.
Let me give you the best example. Anybody has ever watched those Sudoku videos online? I'm a nerd or a geek in that sense. Which one is it? I think it's a geek.
I don't know that there's a difference.
I'm a nerd and a geek. There is. Like if you like Son Goku, you're a nerd. Anyway, so I'm watching the Sudoku videos on how to, because there's the X-Wing and all that stuff. It's math-based, but it's fascinating to watch. Because the logical process is crazy. Guys do it so fast. Right. So he explains to you all the stuff and you go, yeah, I get it. And then you have your own stuff to the Sudoku and you go like, I don't remember I remember what he says, like, how does that work? Yeah. And so when he explained it, it looks so simple, so easy. Yeah. So you start to say, I can apply that. And when you have your own you realize you can't at all. Yeah. Because that's not the starting point. Yeah. The starting point is not his explanation. Starting point is understanding why it works but on a much smaller frame and making it work. So because you're gonna have to go through the steps he went through to be. Otherwise, if you just listen to what he said, you say, I got it. And then people memorize that. And then the next person who asks you how to do it, you're gonna recite what that guy said. The problem is you don't know how to apply it. Yeah. So you're gonna take the same explanation but in a different context to that person, and then that doesn't work at all anymore. And when that person asks you, can you show me? You can't. Yeah. Because you never did the shit. Yeah. So you still can't do Sudoku. But now you've listened to enough videos on YouTube to teach it. Yeah. Does that sound familiar? That's coaching today, right? Exactly. So that's how this works. So I see so many people that take what I talk about as the starting point, then go foray into the world, and then send me stuff. And I'm like, great. That's not how this works. Yeah. Like it's objective-based mentality. Go like what? And then because I've seen that so many times, they take the fucking wheel and then they go further with it. Yeah. I'm like, what I give you wasn't complex enough. Yeah. Like you've already mastered it, eh? Because I'm still not there, but you mastered it. That's interesting. Because I'm pretty good. Yeah. I'm pretty smart at that kind of stuff. But you mastered all the shit I told you already. I'm like, all right, sure, no problem.
As far as the shit that's going to be covered in this, I have a list somewhere too, but I didn't bring it with me. But everything from torque, openers, nervous system,
so what did we say?
Nutrition, anxiety.
So I have to cover the protocol and anxiety. Those two I have to explain the stuff, how I see it and everything. it's on podcast, but we have to go very specifically into
movement, the hierarchy wheel will be a part of
the wheel is very important, the
program,
phylogenetic hierarchy,
and
all that stuff. Well, what I want to give you is all the tools necessary to go into the mentoring program and not be lost.
Yeah, and
although you can do that and not go into the mentoring program,
but this is the thing that if you want to get to the point where you're in a working relationship, where consistently learning, focused learning in the mentoring program with other coaches of like-minded coaches in that space, we have to make sure that you're equipped for it. And so lost, otherwise it would do a huge disservice to the coaches that are still
and this is why I don't give some of the tools. Like that was my conversation with the community. It's like, I can't give you the tool because you're going to use it improperly. It'll work twice and then it'll screw you up completely, because now you're going to apply it to every single client and you'll be wrong 90% of the time and you'll think the tool doesn't work. No, it just wasn't applied properly because you didn't understand the principles subtly
and if you do it incompletely, if you based on like, you know, not understanding its application, if you do that,
it's like the Sudoku stuff.
Well, you're also kind of doing a disservice to all of the other coaches out there who have done the work and who are out there using these same tools and doing a good job. If the same person walks in and they start talking about the same stuff and you understand it, the first guy understands it way less than the second guy, they're going to ignore the second guy too.
Yeah, and plus, again, like you won't be able to help your people.
Yeah.
And you'll trash the tool because you go, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which isn't true.
Yeah. So Online Coaches Week is available. I'll have links underneath in here. Also, you'll be able to get it at strongfit.com. There's the online classroom tab. It'll be there. If you have any questions about the program, you can email info@strongfit.com. And we'll try to get things sorted out. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a cool opportunity with things being slow to open up anyways, I think. But now people have some gyms they can go to. They can train. Gyms are kind of back open. If your pocketbook can support it, I think it's a really good thing to invest in your future as a coach. And it's a lot better of investment, not better, I guess it would be, more prudent of an investment than the one I had to make, which was like, I don't have any money. My gym just opened. I'm not making any money. Mom, can I put this on your credit card?
No, but I truly understand what they're saying when they go like, I have to leave my gym for a week. I have to get an Airbnb. Like they would spend 3 times more money on the other stuff than on the Coaches Week. So, and on top of it, sometimes you don't have the time. So I totally get it.
And there is something to be said too, that if you do this way, as a gym owner, as a coach, as a person who always gives a lot of energy to people, maybe it would be in your best interest to do something like this. And if you're going to spend a week away, do it with your family. Go enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? Because most gym owners that I know, that's the choice that I came down to, was I'm going to spend a week here.
That's true as well.
Or I get to go on a vacation with my family.
Yeah, and if you have a family, I get it.
And the problem is both things are important, and here at least it's an opportunity.
But nothing replaces experimentation. So like that's why I still like the on-site one, because I get to make you do it. It's so easy to cheat. Yeah. It's so easy to think you're doing the work but not actually doing it. And on this one, I'll be on your ass.
Yeah, this one is not a program.
I'll be on your ass, because you're gonna have stuff to read, and I don't care if you fully understand it or not. But when I ask you questions, I better know that you read the stuff. Yeah. Or watched it.
Accountability is built in with this. I think I circled it 3 times, because it was the main thing with all of this. The whole that I can see is we cannot have any gaps of people not getting pushed to do the things that they need to do.
And at the end,
because in the end,
that's all that matters.
You're going to wish that you really did.
And at the end, that's what the mentoring program is working. If you look, it's the accountability as a coach, as a person. What the best thing we've done with the mentoring program is the growth as a person of the people in it. Yeah. As humans, you know what I mean, and as coaches as well, obviously. But that went so much further than just the coach. It went into you as a human, and to progress, you need to be held accountable. You need sometime to go, dude, you're slacking.
Well, and as it sits, it's the way it's been forever. I think is the seminar. What happens with the seminars? People learn a lot, and they have their worlds upended, if you will, and then they go, okay, what do I do now? And there's plenty of lessons for them to take forward. However, it's still really tricky to do it without guidance, depending on where you are. And that's where Coaches Week came in. And with the current climate and some of the needs that we're seeing, I think this is a really good way to get it in. So if you wanted
Let's do it and see what happens.
So if you want to progress, sign up there, and that's kind of how we'll get you from seminar
if you
into
do
the
it,
mentoring program.
You can have access to the mentoring program after that.
Yeah. So All that's there. Everything else you can catch us at strongfit.com, strongfitequipment.com, or .eu. If you want to support the podcast, you do one-time donations at podcast.strongfit.com. There you can also click through to the link where you can also choose to support us via the YouTube membership. Premium content, Julien's assessment videos, long-form assessment videos. I think there's like 16 hours of assessment footage on there.
I
like
have
full
no
in-depth
idea.
assessments. I've already had people messaging me with questions and Richard stuff on like really great stuff,
well,
little clarifications, and I can tell you the people. I love all you, but the people behind the paywall stuff,
I love you more.
Well, it's the truth. The effort that I put into there, I fucking really love because it doesn't give me bullshit back. And I put effort out into the public.
Live
you're
Q&A,
gonna get
by
a
the
little
way.
bullshit back. Yeah, we need to do a live Q&A. We'll probably let's get that done. Let's
get
not
this
do a
podcast
live.
out soon.
Let's not do a live, but we'll do a members only Q&A, and then we'll set up the live setup. That way I can test the setup. But it won't be live.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
That way, if I fuck it up.
Yeah, that's true. And then we'll do live after that.
Yeah,
so let's do one soon.
All our other stuff is out there. Manta Fitness sells the bags and merch and everything in Australia and New Zealand. All our programs, template, Julien's template, Julien's 101 training, everything is out there at strongfit.com under the online classroom. Products are there. Julien's new napping supplement
is Tyler's ending credits.
This is what I need. Is we need a highlight reel of
who needs caffeine when you have Tyler ending credits? That's just enough to make me sleep.
Hey everybody, we're going to listen to the smooth sounds of the jazz messengers. All right everybody, we'll see you next week.